Hey, welcome back to Anti-King. Sorry it's been a while since I posted my last video. I was actually headed on down to South Park to see if I can't unwind. Anyways, welcome to another South Park video. Finally! I did my South Park ranking video about 2 years ago, and it's since become my most viewed video by far, literally doubling the second place video.
Jesus Christ.
So it stands to reason I would make another. So you may ask yourself, why not make it when that video was still getting a ton of traction and not 2 years later? And the answer is simple. I'm dumb and don't know how the internet works. No, but really, I've spent a lot of time trying to figure out what exactly I want to write about as far as South Park goes. At one point, South Park was my favorite show. After all, I am a white guy that grew up in the 2000s. But because of that, I know just way more than I'll ever need to know about the show. So there's a million different things I could do with it. But then, last spring, they released season 25.
Would you look at that? It's just incredible, isn't it?
And I knew basically immediately I'd have to make a video about it. And here I am an entire year later. So I figured with another season premiering tomorrow night, what better time to do it? So today we are talking about South Park Season 25, their first foray back into TV-sized episodes since before the pandemic started. These episodes are probably some of the best I've seen in a decade, and that's really saying something because I think most of the newer seasons are pretty good. However, this season feels much more like vintage South Park to me. Specifically the run of episodes between season 7 and 11, which if you watched that ranking video, you know are some of my absolute favorite seasons of South Park. This season features a great blend of parody and original storytelling, as well as biting social commentary, while still mixing in plenty of that classic South Park shock appeal. In this video, I'm going to break down South Park Season 25, episode by episode, and hopefully, along the way, show you why I find it to be such a brilliant season. So let's get into it. Pajama Day is a patented kids being kids episode, with the end goal being to secure their beloved Pajama Day. It's the first episode to feature the returned Mr. Garrison after a short run as president, and all the stuff with him and his boyfriend is so hilarious to me. I'll admit, I think the parallels they tried to make here to wearing masks is beyond played out, and one of the first time that Matt and Trey are really starting to show their age. Cue the Abe Simpson yelling at cloud memes. That being said though, it still managed to pull me around with the other bits, and overall it was a solid kickoff to the season. I'm going down South Park, gonna have myself a time. In episode 2, titled The Big Fix, we find Trey Parker and Matt Stone implementing one of the funniest retcons of all time, as we find out Token is actually named Tolkien, after the author, the whole time. I'm sure somewhere in South Park's continuity there's something that contradicts this, but the running gag of everyone in town knowing except for Stan and calling him a racist because of it is so hilarious to me and brings about some of the greatest moments of this episode. I love the social commentary here too, especially with the stuff with Randy. It highlights corporations' performative allyship and how they often co-opt popular social ideology and tokenize it. It reminds me of the social commentary they did often between seasons 5 and 9, which was subtle enough that someone who wasn't in the know could just laugh, serving almost as an Easter egg for those that are in on it. Sometimes later South Park can have the tendency to beat you over the head with its message, so I really appreciated this approach. I'm going down South Park, gonna have myself a time. This episode, titled City People, feels straight out of season 11. In it, Cartman's mom gets a job as a real estate agent who must deal with the massive influx of city people moving to small-town South Park. Older episodes of South Park had a thing of creating ridiculous antagonists who will harp on one joke just relentlessly in a hilarious way. Think of season 7's crab people chanting their own name. Crab people. The homeless zombies in season 11.
Change. God bless. Change. God bless.
And let us of course not forget Team America's portrayal of Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
This episode does a similar thing with privileged city dwellers, who quite literally squawk their needs for LaCroix and Wi-Fi like birds. On the other side of things, Cartman becomes enraged by the lack of attention he'll be getting from his newly employed mom, and becomes a real estate agent to compete and eventually drive her out of her job. This story reminded me so much of season 10's Tst, and in my opinion is the best Cartman versus his mom episode since. We'll work through this one a little bit quick, because after a terrific trio of episodes to start the season, this is the first one to stumble a bit for me. And really, I think that's mostly due to Butter's B-story as a jockey. Seems like that's something they had an idea for, and then just chose something topical and tried to lump it in, and it didn't really work for me. I don't know, it's not a bad episode, it just doesn't quite hit all the points I think it could have. Episode titled Help, My Teenager Hates Me is another episode reminiscent of the glory days of South Park, and probably my favorite from this season. A lot of those episodes would take some sort of activity or movie or game that was trending at the time, in this case airsoft competitions, and combine it with a topic they think would be funny to address, in this case raising teenagers. This episode was topical and clever, and just made me feel so nostalgic for golden era South Park. And this episode truly feels like it comes from that era. The runner with the teenager that uses the bathroom, the not so subtle commentary on parenting teens, the kids in way over their heads with something seemingly unimportant. It ticks all the boxes of a classic South Park episode. While I am not personally a huge fan of a lot of the Integrity Farm stuff that South Park's done recently, I think this episode, titled CREDIGREE Weeds St. Patrick's Day Special, is a good example of how good those episodes could be when firing on all cylinders. The stuff between Randy and Tolkien's dad genuinely killed me, and I love Randy's reaction to his own perceived cultural appropriation as a white person. Also, is there a holiday South Park hasn't covered yet? It seems like they've hit pretty much all of them now. Overall, this episode wasn't necessarily the best of the bunch, but was definitely a solid finale. Overall, this season felt like a refreshing dive back into what makes South Park great to begin with. It's not shy in featuring some of our favorite characters, and unafraid to make a statement. After a tumultuous few years in the South Park universe, it was good to feel like the show was regaining its former glory again. So that was all, thanks for watching, please like and subscribe. I'm keeping this part short for retention, stay safe.